For a more in-depth look at that poll, we're joined by political analyst and publisher of the Quorum report, Harvey Kronberg. Harvey, welcome back to the studio.
Always a pleasure to be here.
Okay, let's start, Harvey, with your main takeaways from this poll, which show both of the front runners, Crockett and Paxton, with pretty healthy leads less than 3 weeks out from Election Day.
Generally speaking, you kind of have to aggregate polls at this stage, and if you average them all together, it's not quite as dramatic as it appears. However, it does suggest some kind of surge by Paxton. It suggests that Wes Hunt's mission was accomplished. It looks like he's going to drive them into a runoff with between Cornyn and Paxton. And on the Democratic side, I think the most interesting thing, I think, is what a 8 or 9 point lead for Crockett over Tallarico.
It's 8 points, yeah.
There's 10 or 12% of those people interviewed said they did not. 10 or 12% said that they had not yet heard of Tallarico. So he's still got the same name ID problem, but obviously the video that went viral of Colin Allred attacking Tallarico has inflicted damage.
Well, I think the debate also, and that's when the survey was in the field. So let me turn to the Republican side, because as you mentioned, Ken Paxton seeing some surging there on this poll. He's kind of celebrating, saying that it disproves that Cornyn is the best person to beat a Democrat in November. But last week we saw a few polls that said that Hunt had sort of snuck into second place, a very tight second. But is Paxton trying to do some damage control? Is he trying to stave off a runoff potentially with Hunt?
I think any runoff that Paxton finds himself in, he's going to have the advantage, because those are the most committed Republican and the most MAGA of the Republican profile. So if it goes to a runoff, which we've been predicting on this show since Wesley Hunt got in the race, then you have to favor Paxton prevailing.
And let's turn to the Democrats, because I think the conventional wisdom has said all along that the Republicans were probably going to go into a runoff. We don't know who exactly the candidate's going to be, but with 3 candidates, it looked like a runoff. Now we keep seeing that no one is breaking 50 on the Democratic side. Could that one potentially be heading to a runoff?
Well, remember, the margin of error on this poll, I think, was 4.5 or 5%, somewhere in that neighborhood. So presuming it's a legitimate and fair poll, the odds are still that we're going to have a single winner, but the mere fact that there's a third candidate on the ballot gives people an opportunity to vote for none of the above.
It complicates things a little bit. It complicates things a little bit. What, if anything, does Tallarico have to do to make up that ground? He's still 8 points down.
Well, he has been getting some earned media, but the problem right now is that he's having to respond to the Colin Allred attack, which went viral, which got a lot of national coverage. And Jasmine Crockett really doesn't have the kind of ground game that he does, but she does have a whole lot more earned media than he does. He has to get out on broader media. He was on The Voice the other day, which broke through for a certain constituency. But I'm not sure how you can spend any more money than he's spending. He's on TV. He's got, 1,300 people out knocking on doors. He's got to execute on mechanics and turn his people out.
We've got about a minute left, Harvey, but another finding in this poll is that 51% of the people in this survey disapprove of President Trump's handling of immigration. Latinos are a key demographic in this year's races. How is that going to impact the primary and potentially the November elections?
That is actually if there is a single thing that delegitimizes that poll, it's the fact that only 51% disapprove. There's no national poll that suggests anything like that, and considering how large a Hispanic population we have in Texas, it is very difficult for me to believe that only 51% disapprove.
You think it's higher?
Much higher. I think, in fact, that this general election is going to be large, even though its name's not on the ballot. It's going to be a referendum pretty much exclusively on Donald Trump. And right now, Trump is underwater in pretty much every category, including immigration. And then you look at South Texas, where the Republicans were making some of their best inroads with Hispanics. And South Texas right now, people are afraid to go to work. The construction industry is dying. Contractors are months behind on commitments. And all that's going to, we'll talk policy another time, but that's ultimately going to have an impact on sales tax revenues, which is going to have an impact on the next legislative session.
Yeah, all very interesting. Harvey Kronberg, thanks so much for joining the show.
My pleasure.